Yeah, diversities for me, it's really interesting because from my background, being brought up in the south of the UK, sort of in lower middle class income family, and there was just no diversity, zero culture, zero traditions, everything's very individualistic. So when I went to college and there was people from London, Nigeria, Hong Kong, all these places, it was just amazing to me. And I've always been diversity in everything. Like it's not just being diversity with like having diversity of people and cultures. It's in everything you see, feel, and it's kind of a mindset. It's just for me, it's being consciously aware that everything else is different. And if you're aware that other people are different, other situations are different, then you're aware that diversity comes in all forms. And if you're open to that, then it's going to just sort of seep into your life, and it will kind of be everywhere. And it's just trying to acknowledge that and acknowledge that diversity is different to everybody too. So yeah, it's interesting really. I mean, what I'm probably going to keep relating to in the answers is my experience when I worked in a refugee centre in London, and this was the first kind of like space that I was in where there was obviously heaps of diversity, but diversity coming from people in very stressed situations. Very diversity before was in a completely different background to me. It was in an area where people are more privileged or they're more comfortable in their situation. So their level of culture and diversity was expressed in a different way. Whereas when I was in this refugee centre, it was obviously in a much more stressful environment. And the first thing I try and do, is one of the most challenging things in my life, is consciously listen to people. Like not just listen with my ears, but listen through body language. Because a lot of the time when people are struggling, they don't talk to you, they don't tell you. So you have to be listening through their language, through their expressions, through their energy. And for me, that's how you really understand inclusion. Is that you've got to just be aware of their situation and consciously adapt to that too. So not only listen, but be able to adapt to your situation. If you're, for example, in the classroom, if I'm teaching someone, I can do this more specifically with tutorials, because obviously it's one-on-one, it's more difficult in a group. But if I see this person's energy is different or something's bothering, I would happily completely change my game plan to adapt to them, because obviously there's so many variables, so many things. So by doing that, you're not including them in what you are doing. You're allowing yourself to be included into their kind of world and their plan. Like as an education provider, you have to be adaptable to that situation. In every case, it's in a group class. Obviously, it's being aware that someone's having problems at home. You've got to be conscious of that, and you can see through their kind of, if there's any abnormalities in their behavior, if they're normally really bubbly and they're suddenly really quiet, or that's obviously the most obvious, but those little subtle differences, you have to be aware and allow them to have their kind of feeling of inclusion is always the same. That's what's really important for me. Like, you want people to feel included and that they're able to be included. So they've got to feel. Depends on the outlook. Like, as an education provider, I think they should come hand in hand. But as someone who's participating, I don't think they necessarily have to be hand in hand. Like, you can be participating but not feel included, or you can feel included and not participate. So I think it depends with the vision. But as an educator, I think they should, like, your main goal should be to encourage participation and encourage inclusion, or at least be very aware of how you make those people feel included.
Yeah.
Working in the refugee centre, I was like the night manager. So basically the refugee center was it was like first response, initial accommodation basically. And when I first got there, it was like they weren't allowed to play games. Like they were very limited in what they can't obviously leave. They haven't got work, and that this was during the crisis too, and it was just always busy, always packed. And then there was always high tension because there's people obviously from conflicted areas, conflicted countries, and a lot of religious differences, a lot of political differences. You've got political refugees there, and there was always high intensity. And as someone who, like, of course, I don't know as much as I should in relation to each individual conflict, but you're kind of told like who is kind of at conflict with each other. So the whole time it was very tense. And then my first couple nights, there's the main eating area, and there'd always sometimes be like heated discussions or arguments. And then one night, two people were playing cards, and they weren't really meant to play cards. They are, but then I was like closing up. It was like 10 o'clock, and I was staying there, and everybody's meant to leave at 10 out of this area.
So that's they shouldn't be.
Yeah, because they're meant to go to bed. It was late, and but there was just a few people in there, and I kind of was like, no. So I just sat down with them, and I was like, I'm gonna just sit in here. Played cards. Ended up like 6 people, and we were I can't remember what cards we were playing, but it was so incredible. There was 6 people from different areas, normally arguing. They were talking about their same experiences. They really were just letting loose. And once they were like arguing, but they were arguing about cards. They were arguing about things that don't matter. It was so relaxing for me. It was so beautiful to see that actually they're just people who want to play games, and they just want to be included in normality, included in kind of winning at a card game. And then I let this go on for like weeks, and they just developed such a beautiful relationship. And then everybody kind of was relaxed.